Hey guys, this is Luke with Dad Life Chess. It's been a little bit of a time here before I've been on to play a game, training game on our channel. It's been busy for our family and work, but I gotta be honest, it's been a rough couple weeks for chess. I fell back into playing Bullet on Lichess, played a lot of games the last couple weeks, and if you've played chess at all, you won't be shocked to hear this. I lost about half my games, so I'm exactly where I was 2 weeks ago with my rating, and if I'm honest, probably no better off for having played all those games. So it was fun at times, but I'm going to try to get back into a good habit here and play a training game here, 10 minutes on chess.com, 10-0, playing a strong player, a 1915 rated player. Just checking my settings here to make sure all of this is set up correctly. It's been a little while, like I said, since I played. All right. This is interesting when they do this delayed g6 and then bishop g7. Haven't figured out exactly how to play against that. Normally I'll play knight c3, then queen d2, getting a battery here. But after I've already played e3, it doesn't work as well. Right now, what I'm mainly concerned about is the queen coming out, which can get difficult. So I think I'm just going to play it solid. Yeah, this is an unusual way of playing. I mean, not completely uncommon. I'm sure I've played it before, or I've had people play this before. But, this is why that move order is an issue. I did need to play bishop d3 to prevent that from being a problem. All right. I don't think this works. I mean, it gives up a pawn, but at least I'm not having to give up the b2 pawn, which would definitely be more annoying. Okay, I'll need to look at that. I definitely misplayed that. Should not have allowed bishop f5 without my bishop on d3 and with my rook trying to protect the pawn. All right, so I'm immediately threatening d5. Oh, actually, just noticed he had check, but I think I can play bishop back. But then he takes on a2. Yeah, I'm not sure what that line would have happened there if he hadn't have played knight b4. Finally get my king castled, which is a good start. I'm trying to figure out if this doesn't help him now because, okay, that's just a piece, right? Pretty sure that piece is not defended. Yeah, that's frustrating. I have been there. I think he was expecting me just to take his queen, and then he takes back with the knight. At that point, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a pretty even game. But obviously I don't have to even take the queen at all. Even if I didn't take his knight, I could just reposition. I'm trying to look here. So he's going after the pawn. I don't see an easy way. Just looking at this, takes, attack both pieces. I think he can take the rook. I take the queen. He takes my other rook. Yeah, I mean, it's probably okay for me, but I don't have a lot of time. I'm up the piece. I feel like it's worth trying. I think he does have moves like, I mean, deflecting my queen doesn't directly affect the plan that I just mentioned. So what am I doing here? He's giving up, well, he's already done a piece, and then, yeah, he's going to give up the queen. All right, he resigns, yeah. So in this place, obviously, I'm up the queen for a rook, and a couple more pawns are about to fall. So, I mean, it makes sense. This is just not a game that you want to keep playing. Dropping the pieces is just rough to have that early in the game. We will take a look at it. Before we do that, though, let me just walk through here really quick. So, yeah, I should have known this, and I don't know what to do here exactly. I know before, if they play here, g6, and signaling to you, obviously, that they're going to do the bishop g7. At that point, I like to play c3, knight c3, queen d2, eventually an h4 push, and then castle a queenside. So I've played that, just played that over the board actually at the chess club on Wednesday. Had an interesting game this week. And I'm pretty familiar with that, but I don't remember how I'm supposed to deal with that c5 move, which is very common. But then after that, maybe here's my move order issue. Maybe instead of playing e3 here, maybe I just need to take. Maybe that's the best move here, is just to take. And then if he plays at that point, tries to play that g6 move, then I can go into the normal plan here. Queen d2. I'm not sure. I'll need to look at that and see if I missed something there. Because as I played it, I didn't have that option. And then here I thought about playing here. I thought about playing bishop d3. That's the normal place to go. I seem to have this memory that you don't want it, just biting against these pawns here without any immediate plan, unless you're planning to castle a queenside and, throw the h pawn up. I didn't really think it would work there, and I wanted to get it to e2 in case he pinned. But I think with that pin, I just go queen b3 and go after the pawn that's now not defended by his bishop. I think I probably should have just gone d3 here. I don't know if that's a mistake or not, or an accuracy, but yeah, and I've seen this. I've actually played this before. Myself have played this and only came out of it down a pawn, but definitely not ideal. I didn't want to take here with the knight because he doesn't have to take back. He can actually just play e5 and fork both of my pieces. So I took back. That happens if I take with the queen as well. Oh, no, not with the queen, because I could take... sorry, it does. I take with the queen, he takes with his queen. I take with my knight, and then you have the same fork happening. So I needed to take with the pawn. Plus down the pawn, I didn't really feel like being down on tempo too, with any attacking chances. Finally got a chance to castle here. I think if I had to guess, this would probably be a mistake for my opponent. I don't understand what the follow-up is here. I mean, I think queen b3 is a pretty natural move, and I don't see any immediate issues. So I think maybe there was probably a better move there. Maybe just bringing a rook over. Rook f(c)(8), preparing a move like that, you know, followed up by getting his knight into c2. That could get kind of difficult. Obviously, I'm castling there either way. I think maybe there might have been a better move for here from my opponent, but this move I don't think was right. And then I was able to castle. I kept checking this pawn to see if I was losing it or if I was having issues holding it. I think it's fine. That's the other thing about having his knight back where it was, is that when the knight was here on c6, it was putting pressure on this pawn. So I kind of had to keep my queen around. I couldn't go too far. And then, of course, this is just a blunder from my opponent, just missing the fact that that piece was not defended. I'd be curious to look at this. I didn't take a lot of time on this. I was already up the piece, just trying to think of ways to simplify. I am curious to know whether this was the best move, d2. And I mean, it's not forced by any stretch. Like even here, he doesn't have to take on b2. He could double up, rook f(c)(8). Actually, I'm noticing here that he can take. I did not see this in the game. No, he can't take, sorry. I was thinking he can take. If I took with the queen, then he can take back, takes, and then this piece is no longer defended. But if he takes with the bishop here, I'll just take back with my bishop, and then his queen's under attack before he has a chance to attack the knight on d2. So I guess that doesn't work. So I think here, I'm curious. I'll be curious to see if that was a good move. I don't think taking on b2 was the best move given the follow-up here. Yeah, because you look at the position here, and he's still up the pawn, but I have the queen for the rook because of the piece he lost earlier. I think this is just obviously not a position you want to go into. You don't want to give up that queen if you can help it. I think his only option was to stay active with that queen. So we'll take a look at a couple key points there and see if I missed anything, and I'll look at the opening and see if there was anything there with my move order that was a big mistake. So, all right, let me open up the analysis here. We'll look at the overview first, and then we'll take a look at the openings. Oh, wow. My opponent played much better than I did, and just had one blunder of that piece. Everything else was pretty good for him. One inaccuracy, just the one blunder. I knew I was down the pawn, but I didn't feel like it was that bad, so I'll be really curious to see if there was anything concrete here. I had one inaccuracy, one mistake. So even that's not that bad, but it looks like my opponent was, based on the graph here, it looks like my opponent was winning pretty handily at one point. So let's look at the opening explorer here as we start and take a look. So right here, let me see. E3, D5. Oh, that's interesting. D5. Not a move that I normally play against. C5 here. Yeah, and everything drops down from there. So E3 is the most common move. Knight F3 is more common here. Knight F3, C3. And even Knight C3. I mentioned the Knight C3 being the usual plan when E3 has not been played yet. So I guess here it's even fine. If they ever do take here and you take back with the pawn, which does happen a lot in games, you free up that diagonal just like it would be if you hadn't played e3 yet. So it makes sense that c3 would still be an option. I didn't really think about it. I should have, maybe, given the fact that I mentioned how I normally play against the Indian game. But this is still fine. There's still games here. All right, so here, this is castles is the best move, or this is very common. I know I don't like these. Joel does this when he plays the London. I don't like the queen exchange here in these positions, but it looks like that's, you know, a strong move, or at least an option. Queen c1, defending that pawn without getting in the way of the bishop, or castles. So I'm just curious here, what happens if I castle? Is this pawn not able to be taken? Let's look at the analysis really quick. It's an inaccuracy because of knight c4, queen b5. Yep, takes d6. So that pawn would be a poison there, not ideal. a5. Yeah, this looks good for white. So, all right. Well, I shouldn't even been worried about that. It looks like, but playing rook b1, still not bad. Oh, there was a better. I thought this was just stuck here. What's the better move? Oh, the same move I mentioned earlier, attacking the queen, and then allowing. Let's see, queen c6. Then I can get my bishop to d3. Yeah, I did not even see that. Didn't even see that I could play. I play e4, which is a mistake. Just gives it the pawn. I thought it was the only way that I could really avoid losing the pawn on b2. And wow, just one pawn, and my opponent is up, you know, almost -4 on the evaluation. Yeah, here I think this would just be a mistake because of e5 coming. And the best move is just to castle, give up the piece. So I knew that wasn't an option. Takes with the pawn, knight c6, bishop e3 is good. They're suggesting rook d1 instead. Just putting an extra defender on that pawn, huh? Queen b3. So actually, the move that I was kind of critical of was not, not a mistake or anything. Just instead of that, what are they recommending? Queen a5 check. Yeah, I was thinking about this. I kept waiting for him to play this move. I think I was going to play. Oh, they're suggesting trading queens. I was going to play bishop d2. d5. See, the issue is I haven't castled yet, and he just keeps putting pressure on my pieces. So that he's on the pawn on a2. I think he has enough defenders on this pawn to also put pressure here. So the computer's just saying castle and, you know, cut your losses. Oh, actually e5, yeah, because I can't take without losing my queen. And the computer's just desperately trying to exchange queens, and ugh, that is not a happy position to have to take. Yeah, I could see why this would be -2, -3. Instead of that, my opponent obviously blunders his only real mistake of the game, and it's a big one, obviously. So let me look here. What are my options? Rook fc1. queen e4. So I guess both those moves are just giving the piece up. Because I'm not seeing the move that I played in the game, I'm guessing it's a mistake or inaccuracy. But either of those moves have to just be giving up the pawn, right? Why couldn't they just take here? Okay, they could. And then h3, give my king an escape square. I guess it's just at this point the being down a piece, just exchanges are not really going to help you too much. So I think that's probably what's going on here. He can't take this pawn without losing the pawn here, and then up the piece. It's going to be an uphill climb. So yeah, so I played knight d2, which does look like not a losing move. It's a good move. It's kind of an indirect way of defending that pawn. My opponent takes. Knight c4 is good. What's a better move? g3. Wow. I'm not going to see g3. Or rook takes. And then knight c4 was also an option. He takes the queen. Oh, there's a better move here. What's the better move? Oh, keep the rooks. That makes sense. Keep pieces on the board, so the better move would be to take back with the rook here. So you have the 2 rooks for the queen and a rook. Still not a fun position. I mean, obviously still +4, but they're saying that's slightly better. I think here it's just, once you start getting rid of pieces, it's just really difficult to make up for that missing piece, and then down to queen now too. So yeah, maybe not the most interesting game. I think for me, a couple things I would say just from my own kind of psychology of playing. It's been a little while since I've played. I just kind of lost confidence here when he played this move. I looked at this and just thought that I made a mistake, and I thought my only way out was to blunt that bishop somehow. So I played, e4. The only other option I even thought of, even considered here, was moving the rook to avoid losing it. Playing, rook c1, for example, or rook a1 probably. I was thinking rook c1 because you don't want to start losing all these pawns. After the queen takes on b2, you don't want to start losing these. So I think I was thinking c1, which means I probably would have given up another pawn. That didn't seem like a great situation. So playing e4 was the only other move I considered. I definitely should have seen knight c4. So that happens to me sometimes in openings, especially. I just always feel like I'm going to blunder out of the opening and be losing. That's happened so many times, especially when I was first learning chess. So that's a confidence thing for me, just to not be thrown off by a move that I didn't see, an attack that I didn't see. And just slow down and ask, what are my options? What are my candidate moves? I didn't even consider the one that was, either... actually, I'm looking at the engine now, and even pawn takes. So what happens here? Why can't he take with queen? And oh, he can. No longer attacking b2, so they're saying it's better to take with the pawn, still attacking b2, and then that same move, knight c4, is there. So yeah, I didn't even see this move, and that's definitely a mistake on my part, and I think something that I've made the mistake of before. Just once I feel like I've been surprised by a move, I often will miss the follow-up that's just really obvious. I mean, you can see the engine gave multiple options there for white that were fine, but the route that I took, where I gave up the pawn, was not ideal. And although it avoided losing the exchange, losing any pieces, I did give the pawn up for nothing. And this is another thing that I need to just be aware of. I need to learn this better. I did not realize that at this point I was this badly losing. I mean, -3, 3.5. That's pretty bad for just being down a pawn. I think this pawn is isolated, so I think from my perspective, I didn't do a good job noticing that when I had a surprise move in the opening, that I had good responses. And then number two, I did not correctly evaluate this position. I knew I was down the pawn. I thought he was a little bit underdeveloped, and I thought, I would still be fine here. But it looks like I had more to be concerned about here than I realized. And this was the way that the report describes it, is that it was a nice comeback win, which is their nice way of saying, hey, buddy, you were losing, and you got lucky to pull this one out. So some lessons for me to learn for sure, and glad to get the win, but probably shouldn't feel too good about that given the mistakes that I made in the opening. So I'll have a lot to learn from. Thanks for watching. We'll be back hopefully sooner than a couple weeks to do another video, and try to stay away from bullet if I can. So have a good one.